Well, I Was Murdered in a Lake Again, a novelette by Jason Steele. Chapter 2. Cabin of the Doctor. Dawn broke over the forest, and the early twilight illuminated the treetops with a rich orange light. There was a wide path cut through the trees, and at the end of the path stood a sizable old cabin built out of large gray stones, tinged slightly green by a thin layer of moss. Behind the cabin sat a messy pile of firewood under a tarp and a small vegetable garden that seemed poorly plotted, but otherwise well maintained. In front of the cabin, no longer hidden by the night, was Serena, who had managed to make it all the way to the porch steps before passing out. The cabin was owned by Dr. Piper Callerook, a remarkably tall woman with long, thin, almost spider-like limbs. She had thick-rimmed cat-eye-shaped glasses and kept her auburn hair pulled tightly back in a short ponytail. She had a very professional look about her, especially for someone who lived in a cabin deep within untamed woods. When Piper opened her front door in the morning and saw Serena sprawled on the ground, grimy and unconscious, she let out a horrified gasp and assumed her to be dead. A quick check of her pulse told Piper that was not the case, and after unsuccessfully trying to wake her, she carefully lifted Serena off the ground and brought her into the cabin. It wasn't until late in the afternoon that Serena finally awoke. Groggy and confused, she slowly sat up and tried to make sense of her surroundings. She was on a padded cot in the middle of a living room between two mismatched sofas. There were notebooks and papers stacked messily on both sofas, and a few cups of half-finished water resting on an end table to her right. Serena's black dress was gone, as were her black boots, replaced with a burgundy bathrobe that was decidedly too long for her. She had been sponged down, too, and was no longer quite as covered with lake silt. "You're awake. Hello." Serena twisted toward the source of the voice and saw Piper, sitting on a large oak stool at a writing desk. Piper bolted off the stool and walked over to the padded cot. "Hey there," said Serena, wincing slightly at a pain near her heart. Piper knelt down in front of Serena and shined a small flashlight into her eyes. Even kneeling, Piper towered over her. "My name's Piper. I found you outside the cabin. I thought for sure you were dead. How are you feeling?" "Not great. Pretty sad. Don't really want to talk about that, though. My name's Serena, by the way." Serena held out her right hand for a handshake. It took Piper a second to understand what was happening, but once she did, she awkwardly reciprocated. "Thank you for, whatever you did for me," said Serena. "Oh, yes, of course. I'm a doctor. Veterinarian, specifically. I really thought I was going to have to operate on you because of that big hole in your chest and back. But it all sort of healed up on its own, so—" "Yeah," said Serena, rubbing the spot on her chest where a wound had been. There wasn't even a scar there now, although the area still felt sore. "It seems to be all hunky-dory." Piper paused for a moment, looking nervous. "I'm sorry. I don't mean to be rude. So, I'm very sorry if this is rude, but—" Piper leaned in slightly, and her voice got very quiet. "Are you—" She leaned in even closer, her voice lowering to a whisper. "Are you a vampire?" It was at that moment Serena noticed all of the curtains in the cabin had been closed tightly shut, and the one window that didn't have a curtain had been hastily covered with paper and tape. "I should go. Yeah, I should leave. Thank you for everything." Serena tried to get up from the cot, but immediately felt an oppressive dizziness and fell right back into it. "Oh, no, I'm sorry. You don't have to talk about your situation or whatever. I won't bring it up again. Please, stay here until you're feeling better. I'm sorry. Gah." Piper smacked her hand into her face and stood up, looking around the room. "Can I get you something to eat? Or drink?" "I could eat." "Great. I have a stew. It's a little bland, but extremely nutrient-rich." "Okay. Sounds good. And nutritious." Piper ran to the other side of the room, where there was a small kitchen. She took a pot out of the refrigerator, placed it on the stovetop, and began to heat it. Soon the cabin smelled heavily of cooked vegetables. "I grow my own vegetables out back," began Piper. "I was never any good at growing things, but apparently I've gotten much better living out here." She paused. "Oh, this stew, it doesn't have any garlic in it, just so you know." "I'm not a vampire," said Serena, agitated. "Oh, okay. But just so you know, if you were a vampire or something similar, I'd be totally cool with it." "Great." Neither of them talked again as the stew heated up, and they continued not talking while they ate. The stew was indeed quite bland, but Serena was extremely hungry, and it felt good to be eating. 2 bowls of stew later, and she felt strong enough to stand up again. "Well," said Serena, "thank you for the stew, and for all the help, but I should probably mosey on out of here." "I'll get your dress. I was going to clean it and patch it, but well, the dress did all that by itself." Piper started to walk across the room to get the dress, but then abruptly stopped, her hands fidgeting nervously. "Did you come here for the lake?" Serena stared at her, inquisitively. "Yes, I did." "Are you here to do something about it?" Piper realized how fidgety she was being and tried to hold her hands in a natural, still position by her side, but this made her look even more nervous. "I'm not sure what I'm here for yet. Do you know about the lake? It used to be a regular lake, but at some point it went wrong. Just standing near it creeps me out. Like it's watching me. Like the lake is watching me." "The lake couldn't be watching me, could it?" Serena thought about how to answer. "The lake isn't watching you. It's a lake. But it's a very, very bad lake, and you should probably stay away from it." "I can't," said Piper loudly, and then she made an effort to lower her voice to a calmer tone. "Too many animals end up hurt over there, and they're good animals. I'm very protective of them. You shouldn't stop doing your vet thing, but I don't think you understand exactly how super bad that lake is." "Were you going back there? To the lake? We could go together. I know the place pretty well, maybe better than anyone. I can show you where my dog is buried. She loved the lake, when it wasn't horrid. I'm sorry, I'm rambling. You probably want to go alone anyway." Serena really did want to go alone, but a set of experienced eyes could be helpful. The lake was bad. Serena knew that, but she didn't yet know what made it bad, or the full extent of its badness. Although there was something about Piper that seemed deeply sad, and Serena connected very strongly to that. Happy people had always creeped her out, but gloom she understood. "You know what? Sure. Yeah. Let's go to the lake."